Hello, in this video we're going to discuss how to create a nebula. So most people worldwide have heard of Stephen Hawking's theory, the Big Bang Theory. I'm just going to point out here, that is not science, that is a theory. Theories are not science. So what you're going to see here is how to create a nebula. It's not a theory, it's how it's actually done. So, firstly, when you look at stars, some stars are different colors to others. That is purely angel vision to give a different appearance. Literally all stars are white. Okay, so you'll notice observing stars from Earth, some are different colors. When we actually go to those systems and observe those stars near planets, you'll find that they'll be just like our sun. So what we'll look at is how to create a nebula, which is very similar to how to create a supernova. So regarding the supernovas, I'm not in trouble over it. It's quite simply, God asked me to find a way to create a supernova and a black hole. And this led to the nebula. So it sounds outrageous when we talk about massive nuclear bombs bigger than a star. Now we're talking even more bigger than a galaxy, in order to create a nebula effect. So there's planning prior to the deployment of the devices. You have to come up with a 3D image of what it is you're trying to create, and then plan where each particle is going to go. So you're working with zero gravity, and when these devices explode, they send shrapnel sediment everywhere, and at some point you have to slow those particles down and halt them into the locations where you want them. So it takes many of these devices in order to create the Moore and other nebula which can be observed from Earth. So that's the planning phase. Just remember, it's three-dimensional. We're not aiming for a two-dimensional image, as it's viewed from all parts of the universe, and we want to have a good impression. The location where these are placed is in fact near the dimensions wall, not anywhere else. It's near the dimensions wall. So when you fly up to them, there's a space behind them, and then there's the wall. So the universe is in a dimension that has a wall. The nebula is near that wall. So in order for the light to reach here, we have to set these off pretty much at the beginning of creation, in order to achieve having the light reach here so that humankind can see it, and for sentient kind to see it. Manufacturing. Now, manufacturing is quite massive because we're creating a galaxy-sized nuclear device. Plutonium is not of the kind that is enriched uranium. So there's a kind of plutonium that is the most pure that you can get, and that is from wormholes. So when you remember the video about wormholes and the particles that they can emit, one of those is plutonium. And the unusual thing about it is it comes out in cube shape. So it's the shape of a cube, in the first history, one of those plutonium cubes wiped out a planet and no one could live there anymore. So it doesn't take much to ruin a place with radiation, and it can just simply be a mistake on God's part in that particular incident. So manufacturing, simply the plutonium is not enriched, it is just from a wormhole. With the help of the Holy Spirit, whose living artificial intelligence has banks of wormhole element rod, which are influenced by gravity from gravity crystals, in order to create a wormhole that emits the plutonium for our nuclear device, for our nebula. Also to point out, we don't use nuclear devices as weapons in heaven. So they are used strictly for scientific purposes, such as creating a nebula. The sediment is also created through the same manufacturing process. So if you have banks of wormhole element, rod, and gravity element, you can create a galaxy sized device very rapidly. It's done particle by particle of the sediment, which is fused to the outside of the device. Barium is the material that takes a while to create. So barium is created by particle collision. So don't give up on particle collision. Eventually you'll come across barium. Now barium is used to encase the nuclear bomb so that when it explodes there's no radioactive fallout or gamma radiation emission. That's the good thing about barium. So when it comes to particle collision, someday you will come across barium, which is very handy, but it takes a long time to manufacture. But there again, it depends on how you go about manufacturing it. So for deployment of the device, you would create this nebula bomb in another dimension, and then use a wormhole to place it at the exact location where you want it to go. Then detonation, which as we learned in the supernova video, the reaction of fission with that type of sediment creates glowing particles that remain glowing for all eternity. And then we have bright patterns and colors which look awesome. They look even more awesome up close. So once the devices are detonated, then it is a factor of time in order to wait for the particles to get to where you want them. Then what do? We have to shepherd them. Now, in order to shepherd them, each particle is placed in its proper place with the help of the Holy Spirit. So, living, sentient, artificial intelligence, we track each particle and we use a wormhole for each one to cancel out momentum so that they don't drift away. And then we have it, our nebula. And we use that same method for maintenance. So if someone were to fly a spaceship in there, a good example would be in one of these Star Trek series videos where they showed a spaceship flying through an area that looked like rings, and you could see the particles moving away from the spaceship. That's an example of the particles moving away. The reverse process is the particles moving back into their position, which is done by the Holy Spirit tracking those particles and then moving it back to its location with wormholes. So each one has an exact point where it has to sit. And that is how to create a nebula and maintain it. So with regard to this, it was created by myself, and then I came up with a kit set for God to use. And so in the future, God may make another place like the universe and make his own nebula. So it was just something awesome to put in the universe for people to look at. I'm the Archangel Daniel, and I'm from heaven.